Sometimes people get so stuck in these day-to-day struggles or pains. Not to say it's not challenging for them in their season of life, but why do you think so many people suffer in their stuckness of job, career, life, purpose? And how can they start taking full ownership as opposed to making excuses or blaming everything around them as opposed to being responsible for their life? How can someone learn this?
Yeah.
When I hear this story of you, I'm just like, what's anyone's excuse?
Sure.
On how to overcome adversity?
Yeah. I'll start off because you mentioned this. Perspective is a powerful tool. You mentioned comparison and whatnot.
Yeah.
Powerful tool when it's wielded or when it's weaponized appropriately. And, I was in the hospital at Walter Reed for a year, lost my leg, could have easily felt really sorry for myself when I was alongside people that had, they were missing all their limbs, or even worse, service members that had such severe traumatic brain injury that they did not recognize their wife and kids.
Oh, man.
When I'm next to that individual, this is a paper cut to me. So like that power of perspective, because I was able to weaponize the gratitude in that scenario. That's the key. Because a lot of times I think when it comes to comparison or perspective, it can drive people even deeper into a hole because they're saying, hey man, like this person did this thing under these extreme circumstances and I'm having difficulty getting up in the morning. Like what's wrong with me? And it ends up being a driving factor that makes it worse. Where, no, stop for a second. Be grateful for what you have, see it that way, open up your heart and your soul a little bit, say, wow, I'm really fortunate. I got a lot of great things going right now. And use that as a tool. Those that are stuck, if there is not a mission that's been identified, in my opinion, it becomes extraordinarily difficult to get past the adversity, but even and oftentimes just to get moving. Like, what is it that you want to do? It sounds like a very simple question, but there's layers of difficulty built within this. Like, have you begun an internal dialogue with yourself yet at all? Have you looked in the mirror at any point in your life and said, what do you want to do? Who do you want to become? And I think oftentimes, and that's how it started for me, just very simple. And letting the universe or God or your soul, or call it whatever you want, communicate back to you on what do you want to do? Who do you want to become? In order to make that exercise of any kind of value, one is expectation, knowing that it's likely the answer's not going to come blasting through the glass and punch you in the face, more often than not. It takes repetition. You have to actually work at it. Two is if there's not a degree of self-honesty, then it's really not going to matter. And in today's world, you can make the argument that has never been more difficult ever in the world of immediate satisfaction and social media, and where people are projecting an image because that's become the norm. It's easy for us to begin to believe our own facade. And so that internal dialogue, that level of self-awareness is important, but if you're lying to yourself, then it's not going to matter.
Right.
So there's a lot there to begin playing around with. But I do think that once that mission has been identified, and oftentimes I'm asked like, well, I'm having that conversation. I really am. I'm journaling. I'm being honest. I'm doing all these things, but I still don't know what my purpose is. My soul is not being lit towards something. A technique that is often used is to hone in on your talents and kind of leverage the likelihood of success. Because if you hone in on our talents, which are the things we do best with the least amount of effort, and then you layer skill on top of that, odds are you're going to be in a really great place to do some really great things. I just prefer to use the course of action prior to that as COO 1 because it doesn't place any limitations on ourselves.
Right. I think it's beautiful. This is everything that I've been preaching, but communicating to my audience about from my lessons in sports. If I didn't have a goal, I would quit I would have quit football if I didn't have like some type of mission or goal that I was excited about, that was meaningful to me, that had like a reason why I wanted to do it. Because, 3 days were so painful and it was hot and there's, I could go chase girls instead or do something easier. Yeah. So I needed something bigger than myself, a mission bigger than me that I was excited about to go through all the pain, right? Of all the different sports injuries and just like sacrificing and whatever, early mornings, all these different things, cutting out bad food, whatever it was, that was the easy way out. Yeah. And same thing when I transitioned to business and just life and relationships. It was like I would suffer and struggle more when I didn't have a meaningful mission. You can take on different things in life, but if it doesn't bring some type of fulfillment or meaning, it's going to feel harder and you're going to suffer more. It's going to be hard no matter what.
Sure.
Right? You have to do things every single day to be successful. You have to show up, you have to experience some type of pain and overcome it in order to build your emotional, mental, or physical strength, right?
Absolutely.
Consistently.
Yeah.
So you might as well enjoy it or find fun in that process with a meaningful mission that you're tied to or seeing in the distance and trying to draw in closer. So I love that you talk about mission because I think a lot of people don't have that. And I love that you talk about talents and skills. One of the things I did when I got out of sports and was trying to figure out who I was and my identity in life now that sports was over was I started to address a lot of my insecurities and fears. And I said, how can I maximize my talents, but also my fears and insecurities make me feel I lack confidence because I know these are in the background. It was hard for me to do public speaking. I knew this was just a challenge for me. So I went all in on public speaking every single week for a year. I knew I had this desire to learn salsa dancing, but I was terrified to get on the dance floor because I didn't want to be made fun of. So I went all in and practiced every week for a couple of years as well. I just said, what are the things that I can build as talents and skills that I'm not good at as well, that will make me more bulletproof emotionally and mentally?
Yes.
That like I can whip out these tools at any moment and feel more confident and see where it leads me towards my mission. So these are some of the things that I'm so glad you're talking about this because I've been preaching this stuff. And what would you say are the main talents or skills then that you've developed since that time, since losing your leg? And you speak another language too, or did you have to learn another language? Or
yeah, I speak a few foreign languages now. Yeah,
pretty fluent, or like
we'll say we have a working knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, if I know I'm going someplace where I may have to use that, I got to pull out the materials and dust off the cobwebs. Sure. It's an awesome question. Kind of looking at the positive sides of any scenario because they're there. I don't care how horrible it was. I believe that it's only a matter of time and with enough reflection that there's positivity to extract from that. This being, one of those, certainly not towards the top, but one of them, one I would say is my level and commitment to efficiency. And the example I'll use, or really the way in which this has been reinforced is, when you have an amputee or when you use a prosthetic with a traditional socket system. So imagine this is my actual leg. My leg fits inside this bucket, and that's how it stays attached to my body. That's how most of those of us that have prosthetics, that's how it stays attached to us. Sweat becomes the ultimate enemy because it gets slippery, it slips around, it's not working, it starts to chafe, the leg isn't functioning normal. So I eventually began to visualize the second I put my prosthetic on my body, a clock began to tick. And it was only a matter of time before I had to take it off, wipe it down, depending on what I was doing, maybe let it breathe for 10 minutes or 20 or an hour.
Because you sweat a lot.
Because I sweat a lot.
Me too. I'm a big guy. You're sweating all the time. Walk out in the snow and you sweat probably, right?
All the time.
Me too, yeah.
Right? Especially, fun fact, when you lose this many sweat pores, your other ones work in overdrive.
Oh my gosh.
To cool you off, yeah. Learned that in the hospital. I was going through like multiple T-shirts a day. So, I am more capable when I'm on 2 feet. Certainly I can be mobile, I can be in a wheelchair, I can be on crutches, but I'm not as capable as I am when I'm on 2 legs.
Yeah, you're more efficient when you're on 2 legs.
Absolutely. I'm more productive when I'm on 2 legs. So that clock begins to tick. So I knew I needed to maximize every single moment that I was on 2 legs.
Wow.
And it got a little OCD, which my wife eventually kind of got cool with, because it got to the point where if I, for example, were leaving my house for the day and I grabbed my stuff and I took, 8 steps and I realized I had forgotten something. Well, that's 16 steps that I'm not getting back. 8 to go back to my thing, 8 to get back to where I was. And it started to drive me more and more crazy. So I began...
Every step needs to matter.
Every step, every minute, every second needs to matter. And this is, I understand this is the extreme, and some of your viewers may be like, this is insanity. But, again, I had set my sights on something so ambitious that I need to maximize every single moment. And therefore, I began just creating or modifying these different systems to minimize the likelihood of me missing those 16 steps again. So it's like, okay, I forgot my, wallet. So now it's wallet, phone, like at the end of every day, like this is where everything goes, so that
everything you need to leave the next day is in one place.
Everything is streamlined.
Yes.
So just day to day, I began just kind of instinctually creating these different systems throughout my day to maximize my level of efficiency, just so I could do more things better on 2 feet and for longer. So that's just kind of a process in which I likely would not have learned if I had not gone through this. And it's one that I've maintained really to this day.
For the last 9 years now, right? Or however long it's been, yeah.
Right, so it's almost instinctual, where I'm constantly looking at ways to improve, to make up a second or two, or not.
But with extreme circumstances, you need to take extreme, changes to maximize your life or to master your life, right? Otherwise, you could fall 2 hours behind every day because, I forgot this, and not upgrading your systems with a level and the degree of your new reality, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you need to upgrade your level of thinking, your skill sets, the systems inside of you, your processes, to be even more efficient than before, even with, the changing of the prosthetic or whatever you might have to do, right?
And this is more tactical, on the ground stuff, right? Like physically, moving things around through my day. This is tactical, tangible tools. This, I'll use a second point. It's more conceptual, but I really want to emphasize this. When you talk about what were the upsides, what were the positive aspects that you've learned or been able to leverage from losing your leg. And it's realizing and knowing that although I was a hard worker and I was productive on 2 legs, and I've got plenty of, accomplishments and stuff that I'm certainly proud of, that took a lot of really hard work. There was an entire nother level of work ethic and productivity that was sitting inside me the entire time that I did not know existed until this happened, and I set my sights on something extraordinarily unlikely, but I committed myself to, because I knew I needed to be able to work at an extraordinarily higher level, like the highest possible level. And it's not as if when I was in the hospital, some scientist walked into my room and rammed a metal spike in the back of my head and uploaded work ethic, like Neo in the Matrix. Like it was literally there the whole time. I think that, and oftentimes it takes a traumatic event or hitting rock bottom for people to realize that there's so much more inside them that is literally sitting there waiting to be leveraged.
Yes.
And that becomes the kind of the catalyst for them to start to see that. And then it becomes contagious. It's like, oh my gosh, look what I just did. What else can I do? What else can I do? And that snowball effect happens. But having retrospectively kind of analyzed that, yeah, sure, this was the catalyst and I've seen what I was able to do. How did I really do that? And it was through the modification, primarily anyway, of 2 relationships. My relationship with fear and my relationship with pain. And those are relationships like any other relationships we have, right? It's a 2-way street. You talk to that entity and it talks back. You can only influence so much, but by modifying my relationship with those 2 things really is what facilitated my ability to do more, push harder, create more, and accomplish more. Be willing to take that risk of embarrassment, and when it comes to fear, sure, we're fear of physical damage, but I would argue fear mostly comes through the lens of emotional damage. Fear of failure, fear of embarrassment,
Being
self
judged by other people.
judgment.
Yeah.
I think most of that. So